Hey guys, welcome to a brand new video on my channel, Meg's Movies. If you are new to this channel, that's basically where I talk to you guys about my passion for movies. This goes from collections, hauls, reviews, and today's video, so let's get into it. And Tim Talks Talkies is back with another challenge, community challenge, and that is top 25 80s movies. So of course, with 80s being one of my favourite movie decades, I thought I had to take part in this, especially since I took part in the 90s and I ended up meeting a couple of new people from there, especially KB. So I thought, why not give it another go? And to be honest, I will say I did double up on some things. So there is 2 movies from a franchise, twice, I think? Yeah, twice. Because there's some I have seen, some I haven't. Some people might be shocked by my list. Especially where there's certain films placed. But yeah, so because I don't own all of them physically, I thought I'll just do it all poster format. So I'll put the posters there. And then, yeah, so let's get into my top 25. And this is going from 25 to number 1. Okay, so at number 25, we have Heathers. I have only watched this a couple of times, but I have enjoyed it nonetheless. And I do look forward to returning to it at some point in the future. Such a weird teen drama film, but definitely worth a watch. At number 24, we have Scrooged. This is the Christmas Carol remake, whatever you want to call it. You know, the amount of Scrooge films we had. But this is one with Bill Murray. I actually quite enjoy this film. I do try and watch this film every year at Christmas. Sometimes I get to it, sometimes I don't. But when I do, I have a good laugh with it. Especially when the ghost of Christmas past slaps him. Love it. That's like one of my favourite scenes. But no, this is a Christmas classic. So, of course, I thought I had to add it in here. Okay, and at number 23 is another Arnie film. And that is Twins. I only watched it for the first time last year, I believe. And I actually really quite enjoyed it, so I thought I had to add it to the list. It was hilarious. I believe we're getting a Twins 2. Whether that's 100% true or not, I don't know. But I would like to see where they would go with the next one. I thought it was such a unique concept and it was hilarious. So, of course, when I saw it was from the 80s, I had to add it to the list. Okay, and at number 22, we have Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the live-action / animation film. I had to include this. I have a good laugh with this. I think pretty much all of these are good laughs, apart from a couple of the horrors. But Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a Disney classic. It's one of the weirder animated live-action films we've gotten. But it's entertaining and it's fun, and Roger Rabbit does make me laugh. He's a bit random, but I do enjoy his character. Now this one will surprise people. At 21, I have The Terminator. Yes, I do not have it in my top 10 or even in the top 20 specifically. It's at 21. Don't get me wrong, I think it's absolutely amazing film. The effects look brilliant. This is why I love the 80s. It's because the practical effects just look beyond amazing. But the Terminator films are ones that I really do get enjoyment out of them. I love the action, the fighting and things like that. But it's not one I return to all that often. So, of course, when I was doing this list, I knew I was going to add it on here, but I weren't sure how far to put it on the list. And then I thought, how often do I return to this? But I do enjoy all the Terminator films. And this one especially. This is an absolute classic, and basically both 1 and 2 are amazing films. If you haven't watched those ones, I seriously recommend that you do. Okay, and at number 20 we have Little Shop of Horrors. This is one of my favourite musicals. Such a weird musical about a plant that can sing. That's, yeah. The dentist song, although a fun song, still creeps me out because I am terrified of the dentist. I don't like going, and so when that song comes on, not a massive fan, but I enjoy the lyrics and things like that. But Little Shop of Horrors is a weird musical, but it's one of those fun ones. It's one of those ones you'll return to because you know you'll have a good laugh. I will say the lady that plays... I can't remember her name now. I can't remember the character's name. It's blanking. But she sings Suddenly Seymour. Not going to lie, her voice irritates me a little bit. but I can get over that because I enjoy the music and the effects and things like that. Okay, and at number 19, we have Earth Girls Are Easy. Of course, there will be Jim Carrey films that I add to this list, and this is one of them. This was, I think, like his second role or something like that, like his second big role. And I think this is such a fun film. It's colourful as well. It's got also Jeff Goldblum in it. Some other actors I can't remember. Marlon Wayans, I believe. Is it Marlon? Oh my god, my mind's gone blank. But it's such a weird Jim Carrey film, but I love it. Jim Carrey just does weird perfectly. So, of course, I had to add this onto the list. Okay, at number 18, we have Lethal Weapon. I watched this franchise for the first time last year, and I still can't believe that I haven't watched it till now. Still can't. I love cop films. Like, I do get enjoyment out of those. And especially when it's a comedy as well. Lethal Weapon, the whole franchise, I love from start to finish. I heard we're getting a number 5. I believe it's in the works. I'd happily watch number 5. But yeah, Lethal Weapon, honestly, if I hadn't watched it last year, probably wouldn't have made the list. But I'm glad I've seen it. Next one, number 17, is Clue. Yes, this is the one with Tim Curry and Christopher Lloyd. Honestly, me and my mum sat and watched this film a couple of years ago. And ever since then, we put this on whenever we want a good laugh or we just want some kind of entertainment that we know we're going to get a good time from. And Clue is one of them. I love playing the board game. My nan actually has it over at her house. So whenever we used to go over on the weekends, we used to play Cluedo. And yeah, so watching the film for it was very entertaining. I do enjoy this film. And I love the fact that there's actually alternate endings that you can choose from. Or you can play the film and it'll play a random ending for you. Love it. So this is why I had to include it on the list. Okay, and at number 16, we have Evil Dead. Yes, the franchise that I've only watched for the first time this year. Of course, I had to add the first one to the list. I think it was such an amazing film. Effects look brilliant. The Deadites, even that little laugh just still creeps me out. I can hear it in my head now when I think of the Evil Dead. But of course, I had to add it to my list because I enjoyed the first one. I enjoyed the second one to some extent and then the third one as well. But I had to include the first one because that is just the one that out of the one from the 80s I enjoyed the most. Okay, the next two is quite funny because they are both from the same franchise. Okay, so at number 15 we have A Nightmare on Elm Street. This is the first one. I remember growing up with this film. My sister loved this film. She's younger than me, 3 years younger. And what makes me laugh is that this film creeped me out so much I couldn't watch it until a few years ago. Yeah, and now it's on my top 25 list. Who would have thought? But I think this is such an amazing film. One of Wes Craven's best films, after Scream, of course, for me. But that was the movie that got me into Wes Craven. And I'm glad I finally watched the franchise all the way through, even though it's got a lot more misses than hits. The two that it did have hits for, I really enjoyed. So speaking of which, number 14 is Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. Yes, I prefer this one just a little bit more over the original. It can change from time to time. It depends on what mood I'm in. And of course, when I was making this list, I thought, which one do I prefer at the moment? And I had to go with number 3. I love the addition of the new characters whilst also getting one of the old characters come back. I like the fact we got a bit more of a backstory on Freddy Krueger. So I like number 3 for what it was. And at this moment in time, I do prefer it over the first one. Okay, and at number 13, we have Dirty Dancing. Of course, I had to add this onto my list. This was the film that got me into dance movies. Yes, I enjoy this film. I love the romance. I love the dancing. I love the music. There's so much to this that I truly enjoy. And I always look forward to returning to it at some point. I don't return to it every year, but I do return to it every so often. And it's a fun little summer movie. If you want like a summer themed movie, this is one I'd recommend. And then beating that, funnily enough, number 12 is Grease 2. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people are not massive fans of Grease 2. I know it's recently started to get a bit more of a following, but Grease 2, I still well and truly enjoy. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. Cool Rider is one of my absolute favourite songs from this film. I'm obsessed with that song. I play it whenever I'm feeling down or if I want to feel confident, you know, because it is a badass song. And I think this is quite a good film. As much as people put it down, I still think it is a really decent film. I've seen a lot worse films out there. So Grease 2, of course, had to make my list. Okay, and at number 11, we have Fright Night Part 2. Of course, I added this to my list because I enjoyed the sequel pretty much close to the first one. It's not as good, but it is still enjoyable. I like the fact that we got new and old characters together. I love the fact that the story does connect to the first one. It's not just a random sequel. It is one that connects. Can it feel a bit repetitive to the first one? Yes, in the sense of storyline, but it is still entertaining and fun to watch. And it was nice to see just the characters again. And honestly, Fright Night Part 2 is just a good sequel. I still stand by it to this day. Okay, and we're now into the top 10. So at number 10, we have Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I remember watching this for the first time a few years ago and thinking, Bill and Ted? Random characters? But I love them. They're so entertaining. Keanu Reeves, I think this was actually the first movie I watched of his when it comes to his collection. And I've then thought, oh, I need to watch more Keanu. But Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is a fun film. It is an absolute classic. I love the whole time travel aspect, and I like the fact they go to different parts of history and things like that. So of course I had to make it in my top 10. Okay, and at number 9 we have Once Bitten. This is Jim Carrey's very first movie role. This is his like big movie roles, like his main character role. And I really enjoyed it. I love vampire films, as you can tell from this list. But Once Bitten, I think Jim Carrey did such an amazing job in this film. He wasn't over the top or anything like that. I think he was just perfect. His character was fun. The storyline was fun. I have a good time with this. There's a scene in the high school dance where they're dancing to the song, and I've become obsessed with that song. And yeah, so Once Bitten, Jim Carrey's first main character role. Great start. Great start to your career. Okay, and at number 8, we have Child's Play. Of course, I had to include one of the Chucky films in this. So why not the first Child's Play? This is an absolute classic. Chucky is creepy as all hell, but I love him. But the best part is, dolls creep me out, except for him. Don't know why. Any other dolls? No thank you. But Chucky? I'll quite happily watch him day in, day out. This is a fun little horror franchise, and say Child's Play started it off. And I think, like I said, 80s movies are known for having the practical effects and just looking amazing. So of course, Child's Play is one I had to add. Okay, and at number 7 is The Breakfast Club. Now, I don't know why, but I randomly wanted to watch this whilst I was in sixth form, so this was a good few years ago. And I'm glad I did. It is a fun little movie, although it does deal with some very serious things at times. It's still an enjoyable film. If you want a teen movie that doesn't require a lot of thinking, but also does take some serious tones and you can have a good laugh, this is one I recommend. And I think this is an absolutely amazing film. And yeah, I'm glad I got to watch it. Okay, and at number 6, we have Ghostbusters! Da-da-da-da-da-da. Of course I had to include Ghostbusters. Why not? Ghostbusters is an absolute classic. Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, everybody in that film just did amazing, and it's such a fun film. The song is catchy as all hell. And I look forward to seeing the newest Ghostbusters film that we're getting this year. Hopefully it will be good, who knows, but yeah. Ghostbusters, there's no way I could not include this on my list. Okay, we're now into the top 5, and at number 5 is Top Gun. Of course I had to include Top Gun. I fell in love with this film last year because I watched it in prep for Top Gun Maverick, and I cannot believe it's another one of those films that I wish I had watched sooner. It's such a fun film, you know, the drama, the romance, the comedy. It is a good balance. This film made me fall in love with Tom Cruise, not gonna lie. I don't think I had watched many of his films beforehand. I think the only one I'd watched was Night and Day. So this was the first classic Tom Cruise film I'd watched. And I'm so glad that I did. And then Top Gun Maverick was whoa, it's just amazing as well. So of course, when it came to me looking through all the 80s movies, Top Gun, I was like, gotta have it on the list. I've got to have it. At number 4, we have Beetlejuice. Yes, this horror Tim Burton classic. Had to include it, no matter what. This is such a fun, weird, random film. And I'm glad we're getting a Beetlejuice 2, because I've seen some of the set photos that have been posted on Facebook. Looks amazing. And yeah, so Michael Keaton, you know, Alec Baldwin, Claire O'Hare, I think is how you say her name. So many good characters in this film. Such a fun concept, you know, and I like the fact that it weren't just, they did use a bit of CGI, but it was more practical effects, stop motion, things like that. So I like that aspect. And Beetlejuice is just an absolute classic. And I've said his name 3 times now, I think. So he should be appearing in my room any minute now. Okay, and now we're into the top 3. So at number 3, Back to the Future. Yes! Back to the Future. An absolute time travel classic. And I have so many memories of this film. And the one that I remember the most is I remember my nan having these VHS tapes where she filmed, you know when you could like record off the TV onto the VHS? She recorded films, things like Homeward Bound I watched for the first time on there. Fright Night, the first one I believe was one I watched off of one of those. There was another one, Mr. Nanny, that one as well. But Back to the Future was one of the first ones I watched. And to this day, I still can't believe how amazing this film was. Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox, absolutely amazing. The other 2 movies are great, however, nothing will beat this first one. There are so many memorable quotes from this film, and I always look forward to returning to this franchise. It's still one I would love to see on the big screen, but when I will or not is another thing. Okay, and at number 2, so these 2, there was no ifs, ands or buts that they were going to be my top 2, but it was having to choose which one I wanted as the first one. But at number 2, we have Labyrinth. Of course, I was going to add this David Bowie classic. My sister wanted to watch this film, so I picked it up from HMV. I ended up watching it and fully enjoying it. I love the music, the sets, the costumes, the story, just like the whole thing. I absolutely love it, and I'm glad I got to see it on the big screen, because it was definitely worth seeing it and seeing the surround sound. And I think the best part is that I heard people singing the songs as well whilst watching the film. And that was just brilliant. That just topped it off. But yeah, Labyrinth is an absolute classic. And it's one I definitely recommend for people to watch. If you haven't seen it and you want something where the practical effects look good, you want good music, things like that, this is definitely one I recommend. However, after tossing and turning in my head, I then thought about it and I was like, there's no way this number 1 could be beaten for me. And that is the original Fright Night. Of course, I had to make this my number 1. There was a bit of a point where I was like, maybe I should put Labyrinth first. But then I thought about it and I thought how much more I grew up with Fright Night. Like, I remember having my nan having the VHS recorded and then also having the proper copy at one point. I remember watching this film growing up so many times because I love the story of vampires. I don't know why, don't ask me, I love supernatural creatures, but vampires are my absolute favourite. So this film, of course, I became obsessed with. Jerry Dandridge, like, I would not say no to that man. The characters are fun to follow, the effects look brilliant. I also watched the documentary, You're So Cool, Brewster, and seeing the behind the scenes of that was brilliant. Knowing some of the facts as well was quite hilarious. There's the club scene that I'm absolutely obsessed with. The song Give It Up. Try and listen to it all the time. But there was no way I could put anything else above this because I just have so many memories attached to it. But also it is one of those films that I will return to and I will never get bored of. I will fall in love with it more and more and more as I watch it. So Fright Night, hands down, had to be my number 1. So yeah, I hope you like my list. I tried to make it as unique as possible because I tried not to include some of like the big classics on here. I tried to make it so that it was my personal favourites, you know, so things like Once Bitten and Earth Girls Are Easy, things like that wouldn't have come up on other people's lists, I wouldn't have thought. I'd love to know if they did. But no, I'm quite happy with this list, and I was quite surprised I actually managed to make 25. Not gonna lie, I felt like there was a lot of 80s films that I haven't seen. So I thought, oh my god, am I going to be able to make it to 25? But I did. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this list. If you did, then do give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to this channel, then go ahead, hit that subscribe button and also notification bell down below to be notified when I post. And also leave me your comments and thoughts on this list. What is your top 25? Are you taking part in this challenge? Let me know in the comments down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!